see
Yes, we can see it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elise. You can see it too. That's great. So, hey everyone. So I'm Annette, and I'm born and raised in Denmark, and I'm doing this talk about self-care, mainly to how to avoid burnout for mental health professionals. But I do believe it can apply to basically anybody in the world right now who needs to look a little bit better after themselves. So I have a lot of hats on because I like a lot of different things, and I'm a multi-passionate person. So I'm an online clinical counselor, and I'm also an online trainer and a career coach and an assessor as well. And I will go through my company is called My Free Range Career, for a reason, because before COVID I was traveling a lot. And during this presentation, I will talk about my background, how I got into it, and what I'm actually doing for a living. I'm also going to share my near burnout story that happened twice, and there will be a trigger there, but I will warn you as well before I start as well. And then I will mention something about the current research regarding burnout in COVID-19 period that we are having right now. I'm also going to talk about my own self-care toolkit, which keeps expanding. And I was creating this slide, and I actually have a question mark because I think there's room for more to grow in my self-care toolkit. And I'm going to talk about some ideas with self-care or grounding. Renee calls it grounding. I call it self-care. We all have different ideas. So yeah. And then I'm going to talk about the future need for self-care and grounding for mental health practitioners so we can actually stay in the business, because I know a lot of us is having trouble with that at the moment. So what I do for a living, so I'm a clinical counselor and a supervisor. That's like my main bread. I'm also a lead trainer for Renee's company, Australian Online Therapy Training, and I'm a career coach, and then I'm assessor for a local college here in Brisbane. It's a national college, but I'm doing the Brisbane one, and we're assessing the students who are doing the diploma in counselling. And I feel very blessed being able to work for Renee, and also, well, work with Renee. I don't work for her. We work very much together. But one of the reasons why I was happy when she reached out to me when I was doing her training and asked me if I wanted to be her lead trainer is because Renee has a clear distinction between training and academic educational training. All of her training is based on research, and it's all very much academic, but it's practical focus, and it has that spiritual element that I feel a lot of online coaches and counselors and what have you are missing. So I love working for Renee because she's bringing it all together. It's kind of like coming full circle, where there is the academic, and then there's the training, and there's the spiritual element, and it's all coming together in a very nice circle, or tree of life, as both Renee like we like a lot. So yeah. I also work as a career coach, and I started out as a career guidance counselor about 15 years ago now, I would say. Time flies. And then 5-6 years ago, I switched to counseling and mental health. So I have a master's degree both in career guidance from England, and then I have a master's degree in counseling and psychotherapy from India, because I also used to live in India for a few years. And my career coaching diploma is from Denmark. And then I'm currently just soon starting up ICF coaching as well to kind of enhance my skills. And through Renee, I did a certificate in training and assessment here in Australia. And I believe in lifelong learning. And I think that's also one of the reasons why I became a counselor, because we always have to do PD, and that speaks to me. So I love that. So yeah. So when I was when was I? I was early 20s. I was working for the Danish Heart Foundation. I started out as an office apprenticeship in the communication department, and I loved it. So I went back to college and I became a web designer. And I love the creative side of being creative, being graphic, putting all the technical stuff together. I was actually a geek. I really enjoyed learning to code and what have you. And then the life threw a curveball at me, and this is where the trigger is coming in. The big C word was mentioned. I got cancer, and I was told it wasn't looking very good for me. I was told I needed to get my affairs in order. And at the time, I was living a life that was not in alignment with what I actually wanted to be. So everything got turned upside down. Having cancer is actually the best thing that's ever happened to me. But it also meant that I had to make some changes to how I live my life and how I wanted to live my life and who I wanted to have in my life. I'm also a highly sensitive person. I'm an empath. I get the energy for a lot of people. Most people I come across, I get the energy from, and that's both positive and negative. I'm always having my crystals on me, my oil on me, to keep my balance and keep me focused and being there for the clients the way I can be. It also means that I have to really look after myself. I don't have the best immune system yet. I'm pretty good, I would say. Just the other day, I got a clean bill of health again after a few issues. But I do have to set up boundaries. And I always have to tune into myself. And I have to pay attention to do what my body is telling me to do. And when you go through Renee's training, for example, we learn about setting up the boundaries that we need when we do the contracting and we have them signing and all the payment, all the technical stuff to it. But when we're doing the training, the deeper we get into the different levels, we learn how to tune into ourselves and how to pay attention, and really doing what we are being told. And I remember Renee was saying at some point, sometimes she actually has to be a few minutes late for a session because she has to tune into herself and get herself grounded and centered. And I've always been one of those Aspie person, even though I'm not diagnosed, I very much want to be on time. But now I have learned that I need to pay attention, and it's okay to be 1 minute late if it means that I can be more present and I can be more aware of being there for the client the way that is the intention for the client, because it's all about the client and it's nothing about me. I'm just there to guide them in the way I can. And then the biggest thing for me, which is very difficult still, is that it's okay to do nothing. It really is, and I have to remind myself about that constantly. Both my brother and I, we tell each other, and well, people tell us as well, we have a bit of a propeller in our behind. We can't sit still, and we always have to do something, and which is very much a little bit strange because we're also both lazy at certain point and certain times. But we can't really sit still. But I have learned, because of my health issues, my physical health issues, that it's okay to do nothing, and it's okay just to be still, be silent, and just relax and do this and just be and do nothing else. And that's where I think in the future we all have to do that a little bit more, because I still struggle, even though I love my job as a counselor. I still miss the creative web designer that I thought I was going to be. I still like geeking around a little bit, but at the end of the day, I know if I spend too much time in front of my computer, that's where it goes bad. So that's where my boundaries, I keep having to remind myself, okay, so what is my boundaries? What is it I need to do in order to get healthy and stay healthy? I am blessed with a body who very dramatically tell me if I'm doing something I'm not supposed to be doing. I get physical sick. So in that sense, that's my story. That if I don't pay attention and if I don't tune in, I can't do my job. I can't live the way I want to live. So that's important to going forward and backwards with the way we live right now. I'm very much going back to the basic at the moment, and I love it, which is weird, but it's also very empowering, I would say. So that's the beauty of that. Um, and if with COVID-19, right, I was talking to my mom the other day, and everybody in my family and friends, they're all well. A few of them have been diagnosed with COVID-19, but they have all come out on the other side being well, knock on wood. But one way or another, we are having this collective trauma. We are living vicariously through other people who have gone through this. Um, and and then I get a little bit upset as well, because yes, there's COVID-19, but in 2018, WHO released a report saying every 40 seconds, someone in the world is committing suicide. In America, every 39 seconds, someone is dying from a heart attack. The other day in the news, we could read that it was below 10 seconds in America as well when someone is dying from COVID-19, they say now. And so we're all having this trauma, and we all need to kind of, so how do we look after ourselves? What do we do? And a lot of counselors that I have had speaking to, both colleagues but also people I'm supervising, they're talking about, okay, so do I really want to do this for the rest of my life? Maybe I'm not cut out for it. A lot of them is having compassion fatigue, and that's really, I think I've been there myself, if I'm being honest. I had a session with one of my supervisors last week where I said, I'm a little bit angry because I don't quite understand why they can't just accept it and slow down. Soon enough, the world will go back and we will speed up again, and one way or another, we will find our way to live. And she was saying to me, but Annette, it's not about you, it's about them. And this is where she told me that I needed to slow down and I needed to start practicing what I'm preaching. And this is where I know these things. We all know this as counselors, as professionals in one industry or another industry. We all experience stress. We all have fatigue one way or another. And I was speaking to a colleague who works for a very big organization in Australia, and they are having a massive high turnover of staff. They're really struggling with getting staff. And they're just thinking, okay, so what is it that's wrong here? Why are people leaving us? Are we having our organization set up wrong? Is there not enough funding? What is it that is actually causing all this stress and having people leaving the industry? Because they're using COVID-19 as an excuse, but in reality, it's quite often something else. Renee and I spoke about how there's about 3 months waiting time at the moment to see a psychologist or social worker in Australia. And Renee is having a waiting list on certain areas as well. And I'm saying no to clients because I feel I'm at my capacity. But research has shown that counselors has the exact same outcome when compared to psychologists and social workers. And I think this is where we have to remember there's more than enough for all of us. We all have different purposes. We all come with different backgrounds. But if we kind of take a step back, just breathe a little bit, and give permission for other people to be there as well, to share their gift as social worker or psychologists or counselors, As long as they're trained and they're educated and they know what they're doing, or if they know they don't know, but they know they need to know and they go find out what it is they need to know, then I believe that it will benefit most of us. And I think in Australia in specific, most of you will know that counselors is not a registered, it's registered, but it's not a requirement to be a member of an association unless you work with EAP or something specific. And we counselors in specific don't get the same kind of funding as social workers or psychologists. And I'm having psychologists and social workers as clients as saying, you're just if not better qualified as we are, so why can't you get what we are getting? And I think that fatigue some of us are feeling, and the stress and high turnover of staff is having an impact on all of us one way or another. Someone is getting very much energetic from it, and becoming into a Duracell bunny and just keep going and working 60 hours a week, and they're just thinking, and I'm thinking, okay, so where's the quality in this? It's all about quantity, but where's the quality? For me, it's very important to do quality work. I have rescheduled clients because I felt, okay, this is just not a good day for me, or I cannot meet the client where the client is there right now because what's going on within myself. So I have to reschedule. And luckily, I am blessed with attracting the right clients who is also agreeing to reschedule. And I think that's again where training is very important, and quality is so important today. It was mentioned earlier about it's not about WhatsApp and it's not about this or that, but we also have to remember that if we are not trained proper in connecting, in creating that awareness, and tuning in, and basically everything we are being taught at the moment in Australia through Renee's company, if we don't do that, we're going to burn out, or we're going to leave the industry because we're very close to burning out. And we're all going to stress or get sick, physical sick, if not mentally, getting anxiety, depression, faking sickness because we don't want to have that Zoom session with a client because it's just too much. Or we get so much focus on getting in more and more money because we're coming from a place of fear. So we are letting go of our own self-care because we're worried that the clients is gonna, stop coming. So we just take on and on. And then we don't tune in and listen to ourselves. So it's important that no matter what your foundational background is, whether it's a social worker, a psychologist, or a counselor, or a nurse, a nutritionist, a naturopath, whoever it might be, as long as your foundation is there, making sure that when you do get the training in working online, you do it in what is in alignment with you. So if you want to have an academic training, you go to one provider. If you want to have another kind of training, you go to Renee if you want more spiritual training, for example. So it's very much about that no matter what, thank you, Elise, that's a great point as well, yeah. We all, so I, for example, when I was seeing clients face to face, I was tired constantly, right? I came home from work, I wanted to go to bed. I was just tired because of the energy I was getting. So I thought, okay, I move online because then I have the computer screen to protect me. I won't get that energy. That turned out very quickly not to be the truth. So I needed to find a training provider that was in alignment with who I am as a person, both from an academic point, but also from a spiritual point. I do meditate. I used to call myself a Buddhist, but I don't feel I'm practicing enough Buddhism at the moment, but I'm definitely a spiritual being. And so I needed that kind of training, some training where it was based on research, it was based on tuning in, it was based on self-care, it was based on self-awareness, to make myself aware of how I was coming across when I was working online with clients, to the point where I could reflect on my own practice and say, okay, so in order for me not to feel traumatic or getting their pain in or getting their stress or fatigue, what is it I need to do in order to be the counselor and do the quality I want to do? I see 15 clients a week, which is enough for me. I could see more if I wanted to. I have had weeks where I've seen more, but in order for me to do quality work and in order for me to be present and tuning in and actually in Renee's training, there's this, I can't remember what level, I think it's level 2, level 3. We talk about, present and then presence and then awareness and being in the moment. So all these 4 elements, so present, presence, being in the moment and being aware. I know presence and present, I'm maybe not pronouncing it clear enough, but these 4 elements is something that really spoke to me, because for me, it's all about that. It's being there for the client. It's being there for me as a practitioner, to being able to do whatever the client needs to work on with the client on their terms, but holding that space in between us and with us and connecting at the same time is something that is so important these days, because we can do so much harm if you don't have the right training or if you don't seek out the right people. And this is where burnout can happen even more. And that's important to remember for sure. So yeah, like part of my self-care right now is that I need to drink some water, so we can all have a deep breath. So I live in Australia, Brisbane. My own self-care tool, I have a big question mark up in one corner because I can add something, I think. So in one corner, I have a kangaroo, and this is just outside from my garden where I live. I know I pinch myself every morning I wake up because I'm actually in Brisbane, Australia. My grandma told me as a child that I had to move to Australia. And I didn't quite understand why she told me that. Then I came, now I understand. I passed my Australian citizenship test and interview a week ago. Now I'm just waiting for having my ceremony, and then I can call myself an Australian. One thing that's great about Australia is that the energy here is fantastic. It's such a beautiful country. In the lower picture, you can see the ocean. That picture I took the other day, that's on the Gold Coast. I'm spending half my time on the Gold Coast at the moment, I would say. And then the other half, I'm back here where the kangaroo is. Another part of my self-care is this acoustic art. I paint with beeswax and an iron. You can look it up. It's quite nice. So yeah, it's for me, doing that art, that artistic, it's part of my self-care, but it's also about having fun. It's that's the picture where you see the fighting boy down there. I took that in Canberra. I was walking by some streets and I saw this in a garden, and I just have to take a picture of it. Nobody was home. If the person ever see it, I hope they'll be okay with it. But that's part of my self-care, being creative. So taking pictures, walking on the beach, seeing a kangaroo. From where I grew up in a small country village on a farm, Jyllinge in Denmark. and then coming to this, that's just amazing. And that is something that I cannot and will never take for granted. And you can see the picture in the middle with me at a tree. I hug trees. Every chance I get to hug a tree, I hug a tree. I love the energy from the nature, and I love trees. Sometimes I do end up having an ant on me or something else that's a bit more painful, but it's part of the process. So what can we do? Um, and this COVID times has actually made me spending even more time in nature than I used to. So I used to be part of a gym as part of my self-care. I hate gyms, right? How many of us do actually like gyms? And and now I haven't been a member of a gym since March. I think it's actually expired in March, because we started to walk. We walk about 10, 15 kilometers most days these days, because we live such a beautiful place. And so we walk on the beach, or we walk near bushwalk where we can, where we live, depending on where we are. I also always have a lot of Epsom salt bath because of all the walking I'm doing. My legs are sore at times. Yesterday, when I told my mom that we have done 23 plus thousand steps that day, she was like, "Don't you think less is more sometimes?" She was a bit worried. And I think that's part of my self care toolkit going forward. I have to remind myself that less is more. So bath, having some more relaxing bath is definitely part of my future going forward. And food. So I posted a picture earlier because we've been down on the coast for about a week, and we got home today. And when we got home in our garden, we had so many beautiful veggies ready for us, and it was fantastic. When we were just taking a bite in that capsicum, my God, it was tasty, and the strawberries. And that's where self care has become, food has become such a big part of my self care that I never thought it would be, because we all like chocolate, right? But now I'm also a vegetarian, but I do, I do like some food that's not that healthy. But now I'm even more focused on having healthier food, because I can see how is uplifting my energy, my spirit, my well-being. So that's something that, next to spending a lot of time in nature, my food is a big part of what I'm doing at the moment. And then journaling and having my essential oil. I'm always putting oil on myself. Or, I start the morning with it. I go to bed with oil in my hair, and throughout the day. My partner is having oil on him as well. Next to whenever we have to sanitize our hands, so we put oil on afterwards. So that's all part of my self-care toolkit. And I have a question mark up there as well, because I'm sure I can add to it. And if any of you have any suggestions, please let me know. So yeah. Um, so there is this 5 dimensions of self-care, and you probably all know them: physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and social. And I think, the mental part, reading a book, or taking a class, listening to music, singing a song, having that social media detox. So in September, I was supposed to go on a silent retreat in the Blue Mountain, a few hours outside of Sydney. And because I live in Brisbane, Queensland, I couldn't go because the border got shut. Just today, we learned that the border will be open 1st of December, if all goes well. So I'm very much looking forward to going down there pretty soon. I'm hoping to be able to go on my silent retreat. But we are staying more silent. We are having hours where we're just staying silent, staying off social media. Um, I haven't watched the news for many months, because I recognize that's just not good for me. So yeah, so having that mental self-care, what do you need to do to have that clarity and clear mind So you stay grounded and looking after yourself. What is it you need to do that you know you have to do, and you tell everybody else to do, but how much are you actually practicing it yourself? The physical, we all know, trying out a new workout. I know Renee, she does Zumba. I can't dance for the sake of it. I love dancing, right? But I can't do it. My partners say I dance like Nelson Mandela, which I do not take as an insult. For me, that's actually quite, that's a blessing to be compared to a guy like him. But I like dancing, I like singing, but I also like to have my bath. And that's actually part of both my physical, but also my mental self-care practice, where I kind of combine those two dimensions with each other. My spiritual self-care is both the meditation that I'm doing, but it's also about walking in nature, listening to the birds, or listening to the cars driving by, depending on where you live, paying attention to your surroundings. We have seen some quite amazing places just because we have started to pay attention to where we live and what is around us. And that's something spiritual. It's meditation for me. It's walking in nature. I had a client who was a priest who was very angry because of COVID. He could not do his services. He had to do it online, and he was just very upset about it because the internet was too slow. And when I suggested to him if he was going to upgrade his internet so he felt, better speed, he was like, "Can you do that?" And I said, "Yeah, you can actually do that." He got even more angry, so he bashed up his computer with a cricket bat. It was quite funny as well, but it ended up him starting doing boxing, right? So he's actually quite happy now boxing, doing boxing exercise, punching the boxing ball. And I remember when I suggested to him, "Well, why don't you take up boxing?" He's like, "But I'm a priest. I can't do that." And I said, "Well, why not? Who is telling you you can't do that? Nobody's going to stop you. I think your boss would prefer you punching a boxing ball over your computer." And his boss agreed, so that was good. But that's the spiritual self-care that turned into physical self-care for this client, because he recognized, okay, my self-care is clearly not up to date when I'm bashing up my computer because the internet is too slow. It was funny. I shouldn't laugh, but yeah. But yeah, different dimension and different things we have to do in order to look better after ourselves. Another spiritual practice I have been having is both my yoga, but for me it's spiritual to do some voluntary work as well. And I know I'm in a very blessed situation having time to do that, but it makes me feel, well, one thing is it does make me feel better, but it's part of my self-care because I'm able to do it. If I had my cancer, if it has gotten really bad as they, were telling me it would, I wouldn't have been able to. I wouldn't be here. So being able to be of service for someone else is very much a spiritual self-care practice for me. And that's where the volunteering work I can do whenever I can, I do. Where I live, no matter where we go, there's always going to be birds or dogs that need attention or food. Um, and that's another great part that I love about the way we live. So yeah, um, so social self-care is tricky. I remember Kathleen Nibbs was talking yesterday about social distancing, and how she saw it more as physical distancing. And I agree with that. A few weeks ago, I went to a PD event in person, and a person wanted to hug me. And I felt uncomfortable because even though I love her and I want to hug her, I was thinking, okay, I haven't seen my friend in more than 6 months, and the first time we see each other, we want to hug each other. But what's wrong with that? And that's actually where, as long as we look after ourselves and we do whatever we have to do to stay safe, I think walking with friends or doing something with friends, as long as we're doing it in a safe manner that's not putting ourselves at risk and we're using our common sense, then that's very much a part of our social self-care. And that's something going forward that I hope we will be able to practice more in a more mindful way so that we can actually stay healthy and be happy. It's I always tell everybody I want everybody to be happy, healthy and strong. And I know that's naive and I know it's asking for a lot. There's a lot of suffering going on in the world, but if I'm looking after myself, if I'm being happy, healthy, and strong, then I can be an even more better mental health practitioner. And if I'm staying grounded, I can be even better at looking after more people as well. And I think that's where the priority, and it has to be an intentional, driven practice for all of us, all of our self care, all of our grounding has to be such a big priority, whether whether we take a shower, have a food, or have a glass of water, or get our sleep. It has to be the same priority that our self-care has to be given. um, I also believe that some of us, if not most of us, we have a lot of passions in our lives, and we have a lot of different interests. And I think going forward, as a counselor, I believe it's going to be important that we do more than just counseling. So like I said, I'm a counselor, I'm a trainer, I'm an assessor, I'm a career coach. And for me, that balancing everything out very equally to where I get to do what I love doing because I love all four parts of it, and I do it in a mindful way within the boundaries that I have set, so I can do it in a healthy manner as well. And part of that self care for me going forward is having time outs, and time out is not going to be easy for me. The silent retreat I'm going on at some point, I'm actually going to have to hand over my phone, and I won't see it for days. So that's going to be an interesting self-care practice when I do that silent retreat. And I've been building myself up to it for many years now, actually. One of my friends back in Denmark is an educational psychologist, and she's one of the people who help out on this Vipassana meditation 10-day silent retreat. And she told me, just do it. You're going to thank yourself afterward, but be kind, be easy, and just take it 1 minute at a time to begin with. And I think that's why we have been practicing a lot of silence in the last few months. I like to talk. I'm a Gemini, I'm a woman, and my partner says sometimes I talk too much. So being silent and tuning in to ourselves is something going forward that's going to be very important as well. Um, I have a link in my PowerPoint here to an article that I think is very important for you guys to read if you want to. It's the former chair and a former other director of the board who has written it, and it's really good because it covers all the basics that we need to know because of all the demand for online therapy. As a practitioner, what it is we need to do and what we need to get by and how to do it. So you should read that. Renee, you can send this one out as well. So, see, now my voice is going because I've been talking too much. So, as I said, I hug a tree, right? I encourage the priest to punch a boxing ball. And another thing I've been encouraging clients to do as well is play music. I had a client who is a vice principal of a Catholic school, he says other staff members probably describe me as a dry old man, right? And he was saying, I want to see how I can lift the spirit and how I can make people being more relaxed and more forthcoming and more okay with working from home, because this is tearing people apart, especially the social butterflies. So I suggested to him, well, why don't you start sending music around that you love listening to? Like, encourage your team to send out some song that they love listening to, and he could start by sending out his favorite song. And this vice principal of a school sent out his favorite song, which happened to be Thunderstruck by AC/DC. And for those of you who don't know it, look it up on YouTube. It's not the kind of music you would think a dry old vice principal of a school would listen to. It might catch you by surprise, but he was happy with it, and it actually changed the view that his staff have about him. And they all started to doing that. They all started to share music, share films, cartoons, funny cartoons, and funny music. And it was just, he said, it was such an empowering and such an enriching experience for the team that bounded them together, even though they were apart, because they were all working from home, you know. This was in Victoria in Australia, and can you imagine being a primary school teacher and having to teach online, like primary kids? You know, talk about reassessing your career path, perhaps. And this vice principal, he knew it because he had staff calling him, emailing him, saying, "I can't do this. This is just too much for me." So with him starting to share music with his team and kind of building that connection within each other, that was part of the self-care, and it grew the team together again. They became one team, and it grounded them, and it reminded them why it is they're actually working there. So that's worth, you know, thinking outside that box that we all have, that we don't like being in, but we are in one way or another. So whether it's playing music, singing karaoke, even though you might not be able to sing very well, but you will have fun with it. So that's something to do as well. I have a few online resources here that I'm actually quite happy to share with you as well. The first one is about checking in with yourself, Mind Tools. And this is actually one where you get to answer different questions and checking in with yourself to see how close of burnout you are. The bottom one is the same about burnout, and that's the one is a British one, and the top one is an American one. Via Character is a survey, which is the only free scientific survey of character strength in the world right now. And it's an Australian one, I believe. I have taken their resilience workshop in how to build resilience within clients. And I remember when I first took out the test, the thing that came, like you get 25 list of where your strengths are in your character, right? And self-care. My strength of my self-care practice was very much down. I believe it was the 19th or the 18 or 19 on the list. And I was just horrified because I thought my self-care was good. I thought I was really good at taking care of myself. So this free survey, you should do it because it will actually bring upon some quite revealing, both your character, what your strengths are, your resilience, and how you can build on your resilience as well. And it will show you where you might need to upgrade your self-care, perhaps, like I ended up having to do because I was not taking good care of myself. And I verified with a colleague, and I said to her, so this survey is telling me that I'm not very good at looking after myself. Do you feel the same way? Am I not good at that? Because I thought I was good at it. So that's why it's important to check in with someone else because this survey is actually quite accurate and is very much scientific based as well. So make sure that you check in. You might get surprised. And the English self-care score as well. Yeah, if you're close to burnout, please reach out to someone. Please look after yourself. Sometimes supervisor is not enough. I have 3 different supervisors because I work in 3 different modalities. I have a therapist as well. But that's what I do for my self-care and for me to stay grounded as well. That's just very important for me to do as well. So yeah. So my final slide, I've been talking a lot. So if you want to find me on social media, myfreerangecareer.com is my website. I have a Facebook group for Essential Self-Care Hub that you can join if you want to. And on Instagram, I'm Annette Eriksen. And Pinterest, I'm Holistic Counselor. And then with my doTERRA oil is what I use as well. So, and you can also email me if you want to, if you have any questions, anything you might want to ask or say. So please do that as well. And Renee, I'll share whatever you want to share as well. Yeah. So I'm just going to stop sharing, and then if people have any questions or anything they want to say or ask, then please do so.
Yes, thanks, Annette. Thank you so much. I'm just putting it over to everyone else if you have any questions. Otherwise, Annette and I agreed that we might do a couple of slides of mine. If anyone doesn't have any questions, we'll move over to a couple of things just to wrap up the evening, if that makes sense to everyone. And does anyone have any questions for Annette? Comments?
Well, thank you for listening for sure. So I hope I wasn't rambling too much. It's just self-care is very important to me. So yeah. But Renee, you should go ahead with yours. So I will stop showing my video. Oh,
okay.
nice.
Yes. Yeah, so excellent. Thank you, Nancy and Kirsten, for sharing about that. So I guess I just want to now share one of my slides. And I know, Annette, you'd be okay with this, for me to share this now. I'm just going to move over to this. And I don't normally do this, but this is certainly in my advanced training. So I thought I will let everyone in on this because this is very much my trademarked materials. So usually in my advanced training, you end up learning about this. And if anyone is interested, this is really about how I teach people. This is kind of goes back to what Annette was talking about in relation to really holding the space, but on a deeper level and a spiritual level. And this is what's not really talked about in the literature in the online therapy space. And some of this, this is all about how we need to deeply hold the space online and how it's actually different. And not only how it's different, but also then what we effectively need to use and the skills that we need to utilize. It's different when we're actually on screen and how we actually need to come across. Pip alluded to that in her training before, or her talk before presentation. I guess just thought I'd let you in just a little bit on what I've come up with based on energetic research. Now, this is what's really coming forward, and what's fascinating is the energy psychology people are honing in on stuff like this that I've actually been talking about for years, and I know Annette will attest to this, but I just wanted to just touch base on this because it's very similar but very, very different to what Pip was talking about. This is talking about it from a grounded place, as Annette was referring to, is how can we practice in the online space without thinking about how grounded we are. And if we think about it from another perspective, is how are we actually talking right now? And a lot of the time we don't really think about this. How are we actually talking right now? And then how can we make sure that we are in touch with ourselves, as well as being in touch with the self as the other, the therapeutic other, the client. So we really need to be focused. We need to obviously have empathy, which is standard in therapeutic skills and engagement. However, what I found as a client, I think I need to mention this, just an add-on to what Annette was talking to, was really about my experience as a client in the online space. I feel like it's moving on from what Elise was talking to today. My experience as a client was quite problematic and traumatic in this space. I feel like that's some of the work that I'm bringing to the field. Was I found I became more ungrounded with the practitioner who was looking after me, and I had to go away and think about what weren't they doing. And so they weren't working with holding the virtual space. They weren't working with being like actually grounded and noticing what I was actually bringing in as a client. So I then flipped this and went, how do I then need to be in order to hold the space? So what generally we're talking to, and effectively what Annette was referring to before everyone, was really about how do we make sure and maintain our groundedness in an ungrounded space? So that's really, I want to kind of really reiterate that. And I feel like the clues are not in therapy. That's a hint to everyone. The clues are not in therapy. The clues, I'm really thankful I have an engineering husband. The clues are in science. It's in the quantum realm, and it's in the quantum physics string theory. There's a lot of really hardcore research that I draw from in my level 2 training, and I just thought I'd raise that. And that's another reason why I actively work in the way that I do, and even actively make sure. And I know, Annette, thank you for allowing me this time, because she and I were just saying, oh, maybe I need to get you to add a couple of things. So thank you. And I guess it's just adding on to just the depth of what Annette is bringing. And sometimes what we can do in the therapeutic space is focus too much on this academic, because that's the head stuff. We're not bringing enough heart, and then that leads to lack of connection to the art, the creativity. So we kind of need to be doing both. We need to be connecting to our head and our heart, and that's kind of I guess something I want to just leave you with, the thought process of that, and just to be aware of my share tonight. Just be aware, everyone, that that's obviously my kind of copyright material here. But in addition to that, just to know that what we're sitting with, I feel like what we're sitting in this space, and I regularly bring this in, is we're sitting in the virtual while we're actually in the actual somewhere else. So if that can make sense to you, we're literally sending our energetic resonance over the screen right now, and we need to think about it from that perspective. So we're plugged into computers, to PowerPoints, to electricity, electrical impulse, and then how is that impacting on us as humans, being actually electrical beings? And this kind of sounds way out, but actually we are electrical beings too, because if you look at MRI, all those kinds of things in medicine, this is kind of next level thinking that we need to get to, not merely just the practice, the academic research, but it takes it to another potentially expansive place of transforming ourselves and our practice to work in this space, is actually about how to hold the virtual space, of which I've spoken to in my research as well about the 5 levels of online/virtual empathy. So that might be of interest to everyone here as well. So, so thank you for allowing me to share that, everyone. And that calls a wrap for today. And thank you so much, Annette, to Pip, and to Elise for your presentations. And thanks everyone for hanging around to the end. And we will see you again tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, we've got Richard Hill and a few others. So thank you so much, everyone. And we'll see you again tomorrow night. Bye, guys.